Early this morning, staff at Ottawa Centre MP McKenna's office discovered a vulgar word, which we've blurred, scrawled across a large image of McKenna's face on the front window of her campaign office. Just last month, McKenna told the Canadian press the threats and verbal abuse she's experienced since her election in 2015 have moved from online to real life. Well, this morning, McKenna spoke with reporters at her campaign office, saying this act of vandalism will not chase her out of politics.
We've just been through a really divisive campaign with a lot of negative rhetoric. And this is really beneath us as Canadians. I'm angry and, quite frankly, really disappointed. You can look at all the amazing women I have behind me on my campaign. I have girls, I have young women, I have older women, or experienced women, maybe as we'd say. And I'm not sure what the message sends to them. It isn't about me, it's about what kind of politics we want in our country. That someone would do this. Like, I don't even have words to describe what kind of person would do this. It's the same as the trolls on Twitter. It needs to stop. That we need to come together as a country and have real discussions about real issues, but doing it in a way without vitriol, without hate, and without anger. I really believe in politics. That is why I do it. That's why I work hard every single day for the residents of Ottawa Centre and on big national issues like climate change. It makes it just so clear why it's so important to go into politics, because some people clearly want to chase women out of politics. That's not going to make politics any better. I have 2 daughters. I have so many young women and women on my campaign of all ages. They believe in politics, and so do I. But we do need to call this out because it's unacceptable. And we've seen what happens in other places, in other countries. And we've seen what's happened in this campaign. It was not a great campaign. It was very negative and divisive, and I think we can do better. And I will work on that, but it's not going to chase me out of politics. It's just going to make me recommit to making it a better place for women, but for diversity of all sorts.
And joining us now from Ottawa is MP McKenna. Congratulations on your re-election.
Thank you.
And just a few days later, there's this emotional news conference this morning that you had to have. And here we are several hours later, seeing a rally of support around you. Even some of your fiercest political opponents, Ontario Premier Doug Ford, tweeting out his support, speaking out against this act of vandalism. What do you make of the response so far?
Well, first of all, I didn't think I'd be in front of cameras so soon. I just actually wanted to have a bit of a break from politics, like I think probably all Canadians. Look, I think the response was great. I think it is really nice that Premier Ford went out and said that this is unacceptable. I had colleagues across the aisles, lots of just regular folks. Actually, I had someone really nice who came into my office and brought me cookies. And so I think that's great. I mean, I guess the problem is, like, how often does this going to go on? And it's not about me. That it's just people, the vitriol in politics right now, the negative comments, the personal attacks. I mean, even this campaign, I knocked on doors and so many voters were just sick of the campaign and the tone of it. I just think I hope everyone can take a deep breath and maybe we can all just reflect on how we do better. Like in Canada, I believe in Canada and Canadians and that they want something better than this. And I have 2 daughters and a son, and I kind of loathe going home today because I know they'll probably have heard about it at school, and I don't even want to talk about it. I actually just want to talk about how their day went. But look, the good news is people recognize that it's unacceptable, 99% of people, and I think that's the good news. The bad news is it continues to happen online, offline, to all sorts of people, and I think we need to figure out how to do better. We're not like the United States where we've seen this. We're a good country, and so I hope we can get to a better space because I believe in politics.
Mm-hmm. I wonder what your conversation is going to be like with your family. I mean, we've all Canadians have had to have interesting conversations with their families throughout the election campaign. What is that conversation going to be like for you today?
Well, we'll see. I mean, I'm certainly not going to talk about the word. That's not a word I ever would use. Like, my kids are, sadly, they're getting kind of used to this. And you know what? I actually saw this at my office. So I had all these amazing volunteers, including a lot of women who were there. And I think they feel really sorry for me, and they want to protect me. And I see the same thing from my kids. And I actually just feel sorry for everyone else. So everyone just ends up feeling sorry for each other. But, you know, I've always told everyone, my kids, young women I meet, you know, young people who believe in politics, that politics is great, that we can't let, you know, some of the negative, divisive things that happen, you know, demoralize us so that no one wants to get involved in politics, no one wants to run, that politics is incredibly important. And so anyway, I'm going to focus on the positive, the fact that so many people have spoken out and that people believe that this is unacceptable and that we can do better.
Did it give you a moment of pause, at least? I mean, we heard you say that if the attempt was to drive women out of politics, then this failed. Do you think that's true? Do you think other people might see it as something that might keep them out of politics?
I hope not. I really hope not, because I don't know who did this. I don't know what type of person does this. I don't know what type of person spends their time trolling people on Twitter and attacking them and saying hateful comments. But I meet mostly amazing people in politics. I had hundreds of people on my team. I had like, you know, a new Afghan family that just were so happy to be in Canada. I've had folks that were retired, senior public servants. I've had kids off the streets who had never been involved in politics but just thought it would be interesting. That's the positive thing. It's the positive thing about politics. And so I want people to believe in politics, but I think we all have to reflect on how we do better. And make sure it's a safe space. Like, gosh, you should be able to not have to put up with things like this. And as I say, it's not just me. There's lots of women who've been attacked, lots of other people who've been attacked this campaign, online, offline. And I don't like it. I don't like seeing where we're going as a country. I don't think that that is very Canadian. And I think we should all step up and just figure out how we can do better.
And it's a question, you know, of how serious you're willing to take this, everyone, how they digest this story. You know, Ottawa police saying that if there is enough evidence of a hate crime, they'll follow that. But if it's vandalism, then it would just be considered mischief. How serious would you like this to be treated through the legal system?
I just want to be treated the way it should be treated. I don't know. That's a decision for the police. I mean, I hope they find the person, because I think there has to be consequences for actions. In Ottawa, actually, we've seen this kind of thing with the LGBTQ plus community. We've seen it with the Muslim community, the Black community, the Jewish community. Yeah.
Do you consider this a hate crime?
I don't know if it meets the definition of the hate crime, but I do know that it's hateful, and I do know that it's, it's intended to try to intimidate me and people in politics. But I'm not going to focus on that. To be honest, I'm focused on the positive, just getting on with things. I'm actually, looking forward to taking a little bit of time off, hanging out with my family. I think Canadians are probably looking for a bit of time off from this election. And as I say, I think politics is great. I think it's a force for good. I think generally it's incredibly important. And we can do really important things, and we can have different perspectives, because we should have different perspectives on issues, but we can also move forward together, for the love of God.
How do we do that? How do we do that? Do we do it by addressing this head on? Do we do it with saying it's just one person, a bad apple? How are you characterizing this in your own mind?
Well, I mean, so I wish it was just one incident. I think it's certainly been more for me and others. Look, I think there's a number of things that have to change, starting online. I do think that social media companies have to step up. I think that they can do a much better job addressing the hateful, divisive, and often totally misleading comments that are online. I don't know, for the person or persons who did this, maybe they should think about whether they would say that kind of language to their mother or sister or girlfriend, and maybe they would think better of doing that. And then I think all of us, and myself included in politics, how do we have respectful discussions? And I'm going to take that on too, because I worry about this level of discourse, because it doesn't lead us to a better situation. It just leads people to be divided. And for regular people who are just in the middle, and I believe most people are completely reasonable Canadians, I think then they just want to tune it out, and that's not very good either. So I think I have no solution, so I certainly open it up to anyone that thinks, that has ideas on how we do better. But I think we can. I think we can, and I think we actually have to.
Yeah, we talk about it in society, we talk about it in the newsroom. Can you take us into the political world and everyone who just ran in this federal election? What is the conversation like about divisiveness and how that last campaign went and how we move forward?
Well, I talked about it a bit the night when I found out I won Ottawa Centre, because I thought it was just important. I talked about that. I thought there was a lesson from this campaign, that we have to learn to be more positive, because I knocked on so many doors and Canadians weren't loving it. Residents of Ottawa Centre, they didn't like the divisiveness. So I think that we all need to reflect on it. I think the Prime Minister has talked about that too. I mean, I think there's a broader issue of not having any representatives from Saskatchewan and Alberta that were elected as Liberals. I think that is unfortunate, and we need to represent everyone in the country, and the Prime Minister is absolutely committed to doing that. I'm committed to doing that. But there are no easy solutions to this, because the advent of social media, I think, has really, really exacerbated the ability to just yell out and yell hateful comments, and you're anonymous, and everyone just ratchets up the rhetoric, and I think everyone gets caught up in it. Mm-hmm. And then unfortunately it seems to also, it's having an impact in going offline. So I don't know. I hope that, there are probably people way smarter than me that can think of solutions, but I think we also need to think of the example we're setting for younger people, mm-hmm. Younger people who we want to get engaged in politics, who we want to get out and vote, who we want eventually to run. That it has to be seen as a positive space where everyone's not just duking it out and getting settling scores and getting wins. We're actually mm-hmm. trying to advance things in our country, whether it's tackling climate change, which is so incredibly important.
And sometimes we see politicians doing that through the media, right? They attack each mm-hmm. other through the media. They talk to us, to each other. Do you think it would help? I remember, way back in the day, you would see people who disagreed still meeting in person, shaking hands, posing for a photo. Does that go far in politics?
Yeah, so I think that happens behind the scenes. You can see if you watch Question Period, which I know most Canadians don't bother anymore, but if you watch Question Period, you just think we all just yelled at each other. I have lots of friends across party lines. I work across party lines. It becomes the theater, but I actually think that theater is quite destructive. And I know a lot of women, we've talked about it, not just women, I think everyone, but I think a lot of women have talked about it, because it is intimidating, and it's a very strange dynamic where you can just go and yell some things at folks in Question Period, and then you're all supposed to be friends afterwards. I don't know that that's creating the relations that you need. And look, it's a minority parliament. We're all going to have to figure out how to work better. And at the end of the day, we're elected by Canadians. And I think that's the most important thing to remember, that Canadians expect us to get things done. They expect us to behave in a civil way. They expect us to move our country forward. And I really believe in Canada. I love this country. I've worked in places like East Timor and Indonesia where, going to vote can be a very dangerous thing. In Canada, you can go vote. It's safe, and you can express your political views and not worry about being killed. But we're starting to get into a pretty bad space. So look, I think we can do better. I think maybe, everyone has a bit of a break after the election. All politicians, myself included, think about how we can serve our constituents, how we can have a positive discussion, and how we can move forward as a country.
I hope you get that time off, and I appreciate your time today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Catherine McKenna, MP for Ottawa Centre, joining us in Ottawa.